Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
And we're live, so welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So each week, all my guests will discuss a topic of theirs, really from either a mental, a physical, or a spiritual perspective, or in most cases, what tends to happen, they do tend to cover all three. So your host, my name's Karen Roberts. I'm a holistic transformation coach. So basically, I help people find their mojo. And yes, we do tend to focus on the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. So I have with me here today, well, I would say you're the same. You're on all three aspects, Nicky. Nicky's a healer. So Nicky, if you could share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a bit of your story.
Okay, so I am a healer stroke coach. My area of expertise, I would say, is shadow work and inner child work, because I think it's really important to clear away those shadows and really sink into a deeper awareness of yourself, so you can bring in fragmented aspects to create wholeness, and then you're always attracting and manifesting from a place of wholeness rather than having the subconscious area, which is also doing the manifesting for you, which is why a lot of people, when they do start getting into the law of attraction and they want to create things in their life and they want to focus and manifest, they've got subconscious resistance within them that sort of doesn't want to go forward because of fear or shame or a negative or limiting belief that they acquired in childhood that they're probably not that conscious of. So my job is to take people and to basically get them to sink into a deeper awareness of themselves, and make sure that they are basically cleaning out the closet so that they are whole and able to raise their vibrations so they can attract better experiences in life.
Lovely. And so for those who are listening and are thinking, shadow work, can you explain to people who are new to this kind of thing a little bit about what shadow work is?
Okay, so shadow work is basically what we are not consciously aware of. So it's the parts of us that we usually reject, deny, or disown, the aspects of us that we are not wanting to show to people. So we might be aware of them on some level. Sometimes we're completely unaware of them, but they do run the program in our minds, and that's the image we project out and are also attracting from. So if you were shamed as a child for certain things, such as if when you were a toddler and you had you threw a tantrum and your parents shamed you for that behavior, in order for you to get close to the parent, what actually happens is a form of fragmentation within yourself. So, and it's not done consciously, of course. It's a 3-year-old, for example, but what happens is they think, this response is getting such a negative response from mum, so I'm going to turn away against myself this aspect of the anger, and I'm going to push it down into the shadow, and I'm not going to consciously be aware of it in order for me to get closer to mum. So they bury it. And I found this was a thing with me. I found like I was attracting relationships where men were quite angry and volatile, and I couldn't understand it because I thought I'm really calm. I identified with being someone that's really calm and placid. And it wasn't until I had my daughter when I was being triggered quite a lot, and it just brought this anger out in me, and I had to go, oh my gosh, here's the anger. I've been rejecting and denying this pretty much all my life, and here it is in front of me. So shadow work is about looking at that and sitting with it. So in the case of what I did that time when I was really triggered by my little girl, I went home and I sat with it, and I was like, okay, I want to see what this looks like. So I did a visualization process where I wanted to see my anger, and I wanted to get to know it. I wanted to understand its needs, its wants, its feelings. So you're bringing it into the light by turning your awareness to it. And I had a conversation with that aspect of myself that had that so much anger. And always underneath it is fear of rejection, fear of being shamed, fear of not being accepted. So by having that conversation with that aspect and sitting with it and allowing myself to feel it, I think that's really important. So most people, when they get triggered or something happens, it could be an outside experience or person triggers them, or something goes on in their life, most people's natural response is to try and move away from the feeling as quickly as possible. So we do that in all manner of ways, like cigarettes, alcohol, coffee, distracting yourself on your phone. And what's happening is we're pushing the feeling away, we're denying it. And when you resist something, it gets bigger. So what I teach people to do is to just sit with it, breathe. You don't even need to go into a full process. I mean, what I do with my clients is I get them to sink into their triggers, and I get them to sink into their bodies and explore the emotion, the body sensations of that emotion, to really get to know it. But if you're short on time, shadow work, you don't even need to do that. You just literally have to just allow yourself to feel it, and just give yourself, even if it's just a minute, if your kids are going mad, just sit there and just allow yourself to feel it. And what you'll find, because emotion is energy, emotion, and that emotion, that energy will move through you quicker if you just allow yourself to feel it. So shadow work is an ongoing thing. It's a daily practice of mine. If I get triggered, I sit with it, I explore it. So really, in the short of it, it's just about making the unconscious conscious, and shining the light onto it so that it's no longer in the shadow, and owning yourself fully.
Brilliant. Fantastically explained. I mean, it is something that we're all human. Everybody's going to have it. Everybody's going to have issues there, because, as children, we would deal with things in very different way to maybe us as an adult, and we're just going through life, and we've forgotten this, right? And nobody has none of us do this deliberately, do we? We don't. This isn't a conscious thing. We don't consciously self-sabotage ourselves. But everything you're saying really is all about going within, isn't it? And there you go. You've got the answers to pretty much all your problems, really, because it's isn't it interesting that the majority of our lives is being run on this sort of autopilot from past experiences, which could go back to when we were 3 years old. It's crazy when we look at it like that, isn't it?
And shadow work doesn't always have to be about integrating negative aspects either, because what you will often find is that we were sometimes, say for example, if you're a kid and you're really creative and artistic, but you're born into a family who are really studious and they want to focus on academic stuff, so you might be kind of steered towards or even shamed for expressing your creative abilities. So when you do shadow work, sometimes you can find aspects of yourself that you've been pushed aside by your parents' conditioning that are actually really beneficial for you and in more alignment with what brings you joy. So, that saying, the shadow contains a gift, is really important as well. It's not just about, let's integrate these aspects that we're not so keen on. It's also about, let's bring a light to this tiny soul that came in with all of these natural abilities that might have been suppressed in some way by the conditioning or the society or the family they were born into. And let's look at that. Let's bring that inner child out with all of its gifts, and let's see what we can create from there. So it's not always. It doesn't have to always be an icky process. It can sometimes be a really beautiful process of unfolding that true, authentic soul that you are, that you came in with.
Wow. And how did you get into this? Have you always been like this, or what would you share with the listeners a little bit about your story?
So I've always been a seeker of truth. I've always known there was more to life than what we perceive with our very limited five senses. So when I was young, I mean, for me, that looked like, okay, the only access I had really to anything spiritual was reading the Bible and praying and the sort of more traditional Christian ways. But it didn't resonate for me because I found it very limiting. So I was like, well, hold on. If there's a child in Ethiopia that hasn't been introduced to Jesus, you're telling me they're going to hell because they don't believe in Jesus? I thought, no. It didn't make sense. So I just always had an inner knowing. In my early 20s, I started, I don't know how, but I just came across near-death experiences. And I just researched every near-death experience I could. I've read books on it. I even met somebody that had one. And it kind of pieced together. It was almost like a remembering of, I know this. I know that we're all one. I know that God is not a man on a cloud. It is all that is. It is energy, and we are a part of it. So that kind of led me on my spiritual path. And then as I got older, sort of in my late 20s, I came across a really, who I think is a really groundbreaking teacher called Teal Swan. And she's very much about shadow work, self-awareness. She wrote an amazing book called The Completion Process. And at the same time, I'd gotten to a spiritual centre where I was training in Shamanic Healing. And I was reading lots of books on, especially soul retrieval, which I found really interesting. And what I found was looking at the soul retrieval books and the process in shamanism, it was the same kind of concept, just using different terminology as psychology in a child healing. It's all about bringing those parts that we reject back into wholeness. So like in shamanism, you use the term the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world, which you can kind of relate to the subconscious, the conscious mind, and the superconscious mind. So I found it really interesting, just tying everything together. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I was using these processes in my own life, rather than reaching for a cigarette or a cup of coffee or even a glass of wine. I was sitting with myself, and I just found myself becoming more and more peaceful, and also combining this with meditation and just being more aware of the thoughts I'm thinking, and especially judgments that I make throughout the day of other people and myself. So I will be conscious of the thoughts I'm thinking, and I will stop. And if I'm having a judgment, I'll say, okay, bring it back home. What is this reflecting back to me? So owning it, because a lot of times with shadow work, what we really detest in other people is a massive mirror to what we're pushing away in ourselves. That's why relationships are like the greatest things for shadow work, because you're meeting a direct mirror of you, and they're going to mirror all the stuff that you've not healed within yourself. The relationships are a great opportunity to do inner work. So yeah, that's kind of my journey, and I just wanted to help people do the same. And especially with all this, new age is very big at the moment. Law of attraction is big. It's been big for a few years, but I think a lot of people are missing the fundamental aspects. It's not as simple as sitting there and thinking, I want a car, I want £1 million. You have to deal with your resistance. What are your beliefs? Because if you don't believe you can attract £1 million, you won't. And what you're doing is you're putting more resistance in. So what I teach people to do is to look at the resistance within them and to see where those beliefs came from, and then challenge those beliefs, go back to where the belief originated from and dissect it and pick it apart. And then from there, you're in a more, grounded place to create new beliefs and attract better things.
Love that. I mean, it's almost like it's like the Matrix, and it's like deprogramming.
Yeah.
If there was a quick way to like plug in, deprogram, get rid of all of that, upload a new program, but with it, as with everything, there isn't a quick fix. We do sort of live in a instant gratification era, and we want it now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree. I think I was introduced to The Secret. Oh my goodness. I think my daughter was just born, so she's going to be 18 soon. And one of the best pieces of advice I was actually ever given, it was by one of the Bob Proctor's coaches. So Bob Proctor was one of the coaches in the film. Said there's so much depth to that film. Watch it twice a day for a month.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought, you are crazy. Like, who watches a film repeatedly, like 60 times? Best decision I ever made, and I would totally agree. People watch the film or read the book, and like you say, they underestimate what they're saying. They're not really hearing, because you can read something or watch something once, and you see or you read, you hear what you want to hear. When you watch it again, you hear something a little bit different, and on the face of it is, oh yeah, you've just got to ask the universe for this, that, and the other. But actually, it doesn't even. It is trying to explain it. It's just that people are hearing the superficial, the surface level instructions, and it is about the feeling place, isn't it? It's not about actually thoughts are thoughts. Thoughts come in, go out. They can come from somewhere else, not even just from you, but it is, isn't it? It's about that feeling place. And I love what you said earlier about, it's just, it is owning it, taking responsibility. We're so conditioned to look outside of ourselves, to either blame, but it's when we go within. And I love what you said about the related. That's quite it is acknowledging the fact that that's actually what you're doing. And I love that. Take ownership. That's what we've got to do, especially in the last couple of years, right? I think we've all learned that, look, stop giving your power away to the powers that be, or the ones in the white coats that are going to be there to heal yourself.
Yeah.
Heal yourself.
Exactly.
So how did you start on your journey towards, so you were on this, it sounds like you're saying you were on this sort of journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
So when did you realise that actually you could actually heal others?
So when I was doing the shamanic course, I also used to go to a weekly introduction to shamanism. So people would come in and we would practice energy healing, which I also do, but I do really more enjoy the more tangible, nitty-gritty, talking people through processes. And it was through soul retrieval. It was through practicing on people that wanted to, they had something that they wanted to heal within themselves. There was a repeating problem or pattern in their life. So I would basically just do the soul retrieval, but in a way that I was facilitating them through it. Whereas with a shaman, with the soul retrieval, they will travel themselves and go and retrieve the soul pieces for the client. So I don't do that. I'm not, I'm not as advanced to be able to see exactly where this piece of soul is. So what I do is I basically talk them through the process themselves, and I get them to sink into, like I said, the somatics of the emotion first, whatever that trigger is, that repeating pattern. I get them to be fully present with it. And then from there, what I do is I get them to sink into it and allow it to be there. So I get them to say to themselves things like, I am ready to feel you fully now. I'm completely here with you now. I'm fully present. And I get them to breathe into it and allow that feeling, that emotion to just take over their body. And I get them to talk to me rather than the story about what's triggering it. I get them to actually focus on the body sensation. So does it feel like static in the belly? Is it constriction? And then once I get them to do that, I get them to describe what it looks like visually. So it might be like a black smudgy bit of smoke, or like a hole within them. So I get them to take away from the story and actually go into what this thing is in their belly or wherever it is in the body. And then once you do that, what you do is you basically say, I want you to now ask yourself, when was the first time I felt this exact same feeling? And then what you'll find is a memory or an emotion or a feeling will surface, and it will just give them something that they can then explore. And then they can delve into that. And it's usually a childhood memory, usually before the age of 8. Some people I've taken back to the womb. There's so much that goes on in our gestation process that we're just not aware of, because we are absorbing all of our mum's emotions, everything that's going on outside. And so we're taking that all in. So a lot of people I have taken back to the womb. And basically I get people to reparent themselves. So I get them to basically give that child or baby all the love and everything they wanted to hear as that child or the baby. I get them to give it to themselves. But before I do that, I validate the emotion of that child before we do that. Before we start changing anything or rectifying it, I get them to acknowledge that they are in pain, and it's okay. It's okay to feel these negative emotions, because the situation that you are experiencing is not very pleasant for you, and that's okay. It's okay to feel. So once we've done that, we can then go about changing the memory, reparenting the child, and then from there we then call back any fragmented aspects that might have disappeared off into the cosmos or wherever. So we can bring them back and deal with one child, and from there we can take them to the healing space, get them to merge with the adult eventually, and that's you've integrated another piece. But there's so many layers to it. What I find is once you start doing this process, the universe goes, okay, here's another aspect that you need to integrate.
Oh, I can
So
imagine.
Don't be like, no, I start on this story, this journey, and it's not a one and done kind of thing. You're constantly healing yourself in layers. It's like a process of putting yourself back together again.
Right.
But the better it gets, the better it gets. So obviously, the more healed you get, the better and more grounded you feel, the more whole you are, the better you can attract better experiences. You're not attracting the loser guys anymore. You find your life transforming as you go along, because that's what's happened to me.
It makes so much sense because, like people sort of, I think, view this whole thing in the negative. I think, well, none of us do this deliberately. It's not because we're bad people if we're attracting bad things. It's because of things like this. It's that going back to that feeling place, how you felt at that time. It doesn't make you a bad person. All these bad things, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, it's got nothing to do with that. When people realise, I mean, I don't know about you. You actually said this earlier, that I think more and more people are coming into this way of thinking now. Probably in the last 20 years since the sort of secrets come out, I think it has brought it to the mainstream. But people are misunderstanding it, and they can't understand, well, that makes them a bad person. No, it's a negative feeling is a negative feeling. That could come from the perpetrator or the victim. It's two together, right? So that whole feeling place, yes, of course, it makes sense. It makes total sense. People can understand it with I don't know, you talk about a radio, I'll say, in this room you could imagine if you could hear it all, it would sound awful, all the different radio stations on at the same time. They're in this room, I turn the radio on, I'm not bringing one into the room, they're all here, I'm just tuning into it. Yeah. So people can understand it on that level, but still sort of deny it on the other level. And I do think you're right that people are more and more coming into this way of thinking, and hopefully reaching out for help, because it doesn't mean it's just, these are just tools and these are solutions, aren't they, to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And there's nobody, I would challenge anybody, there's nobody going to be out there that is perfect, right? That doesn't have anything to heal. We've all got stuff to heal.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so amazing that they can. So really, it sounds like from what you're describing is you're, in a way, not even putting them into a meditative state, because you're making them aware.
Yeah.
Rather than being, I don't know, a hypnotist would, get them to almost go to sleep to sort of try and reprogram the subconscious. It sounds what you're describing here is actually slightly different. It's actually, again, owning it and sitting with it and facing it, because I suppose it is our natural response to avoid pain.
Yeah.
So we either run away from it or we want to shut it off, and we don't want to listen to it. But that's obviously not the best way to deal with it, is it?
No, I mean, the thing is, our emotions, we've been taught to be scared of our emotions. We've been taught by society not to feel. We really have, like I use the example with the child that's crying. Oh, don't cry. Even the best well-meaning mothers, when I see a kid upset because it's fallen over, they try and, here's a carrot, or here's a cookie. They try and distract them from that negative emotion. But, the thing is, what they're doing is, and they're not meaning to do it, of course, but they're teaching them to ignore their guidance system. And I think what we need to do is say, our emotions, they are our guidance. They are literally our guidance system. They let us know when we're out of alignment or in alignment. And that's it. So when you're in alignment, you're feeling content, you're feeling peaceful or joy or happy, you're in alignment. When you're feeling negative emotion, it's either an indicator to watch what you're thinking, be aware of your thoughts, or if it's really an emotional upset, okay, there's something here that needs healing, let's look at this. So we can use our emotions as they should be used, as a guidance system to kind of either look at something that we need to heal, or change the thoughts we're thinking about a certain topic, challenge our own beliefs. So yeah, we can just become more aware of feeling. We need to get better at feeling rather than trying to feel better. We need to get better at feeling.
Yeah. I totally, and it's interesting. It must be very different if you look at different cultures. Like I don't know, in some cultures at funerals, that it is very much they're crying and almost wailing, but that's got to be a good thing. They're letting it out. They're
Absolutely.
grieving in a natural way. And yeah, you're so right, especially here. Wherever you are listening to this, okay, we're in the UK, but we are taught to, yes, stop that crying. You
Mhm.
know, you sit in a funeral and you want to cry, but you're actually trying to stop that, and it hurts,
Yeah, it does, because you're
doesn't it?
suppressing it. It's, you're not,
It
your
is. It's
throat,
hurt. It
your throat
hurts,
chakra.
and it's so that's an indication that that's probably not a good thing. We need to let it out.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. We've been conditioned from birth to. And yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure I've done it myself. We repeat things from our parents. It doesn't mean we're bad parents for doing it because you want to console.
Yeah,
But yes, it's interesting when you look at it and look at other cultures and the way they are allowed to almost
yeah,
in their society to actually allow to go through that grieving process and actually let it out.
yeah.
It's okay to
Mm.
cry.
I also think that holding on to emotions is a main one of the causes of manifesting diseases in the body. Because when you're holding on to trauma and you're keeping it in, you're repressing it, your body will speak to you through disease, dis-ease. It's dis-ease in the body. So, it's to benefit your overall health. You've got to start getting present and allowing yourself to express everything that you're feeling, because otherwise you store it in your body.
100%. And again, sort of, I suppose what this show is about is the mental, the physical, spiritual. It is all one. I mean,
Yeah,
even I'm probably adding to the issue because I am separating it. But it is to try and bring people into it's all the same, whether you believe it or not.
yeah,
Whether you believe in the woo woo or not, it's there. I'm trying to veer people now a little bit more into. They've had it for about a year with
yeah,
my sprinkling of woo woo. Now we're trying to because it's all one. It's all one
yeah.
and the same. All has to manifest through you,
Mm,
right? And yeah, 100%. I agree. I think a lot. Yeah. Disease is. If you were to retrace it back, there's just going to be some link. I'm sure we all know people that totally suppress feelings, and then yeah, they get ill, and you think, oh no, what caused? I can see
yeah,
what caused that.
exactly.
And
Exactly that.
again, it doesn't mean they're bad. It's just
No,
that they're trying to deal. I suppose we're all trying to get by as best we can with the information that we have available. And this is the sad thing: is that this information isn't as widely available, which is fantastic. Why people like yourself are bringing it to the forefront of people to allow them to realize that there is help out there
mm,
and they can help heal themselves.
yeah.
They
I mean,
don't.
at the moment, I'm training in rapid transformational therapy, which is a form of hypnosis developed by Marissa Peer.
Hmm.
And the reason I've decided to train in that is because I wanted to reach more mainstream people. So not everyone is going to know, shamanic healing or soul retrieval. That might sound too woo to most people. So the RTT, and again, it's based on the same kind of concepts. You're doing, inner child healing, and you're changing the memory and you're reparenting, but you're doing it in a different way. So you're counting them back down steps, and then you're getting them to basically, what was the trigger for this core wound, what was the, when did this thing first, when did you first feel this thing. So it's same principles in a different technique, and it's amazing. Her technique is actually just phenomenal, really. It's so simple. And yeah, so I think that's a good thing, because that's going to reach more people, because you are dealing, it's not so woo woo in your soul fragments. For other people that are more mainstream, you're dealing with more memories, and they can get their head around it a little bit more. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? So
It's that introduction, isn't it? It's that midway. Yeah,
yeah,
like you say, for some people, hearing you talking about soul retrieval might sound a little bit too far out there for them at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
However, if they come to you for the RTT and, you know, notice the change, they're more likely to maybe come back and maybe go a little bit deeper onto some of the other things that you're doing. I think it's amazing what you're doing, and yeah, for people out there who are thinking, oh, it's a bit odd. Yeah, it is what it is. The laws of the universe are the laws of the universe. So you either want to learn how to work with it rather than be run by it. Really, I suppose it's all, again, it's about, we do have choice, so we do have the power within us to actually create, whereas most people are just being run by autopilot and they're just reacting.
Yeah. And this is the thing, it's so important. Like, I've got, you know, what I've done is I've basically brainwashed myself. Like, I will repeat affirmations, you know, when I do a meditation, because the external world, the society we are in, has done a really good job of brainwashing people to believe that they are powerless, to believe they have to listen to an authority figure to dictate their life. That, you know, we're so programmed from the minute we're born. So, you know, a lot of the work that I do is about unprogramming yourself from all of the external programs that, you know, we're not taught how powerful we are. In school, we're only taught to kind of, you know, memorize and regurgitate facts, and that's how they measure intelligence. Like, that whole system needs to change. And I know a lot of people that are at the moment really doing amazing work to basically change and reform the education system, which I think is fantastic. It's going to have so many benefits because we really do need to. We've just been so suppressed and we've had information held from us, which is why people find this stuff so, you know, it's unfamiliar, because for a reason they've deliberately kept that stuff from us, because they want us to be customers going to the pharmaceuticals, taking medicine to heal the symptom and doesn't do anything for the root cause. So, you know, they don't want us to know that how powerful our minds are. Our minds are so powerful. Like, we can create disease, we can heal disease, all up here. Simple as that. And so, yeah, I think it's so important to try and bring that information to more people and teach people, to empower them, to give them sovereignty over their bodies, their whole life. You know, you can change your life. I mean, I changed mine by changing the thoughts that you think and the pictures you make in your head. You can totally change your whole life. So,
well, I think it is slowly getting out there, and you're right. I agree. The education system. You know, when I first heard about all this kind of, that was the first thought process, was what, this should be taught in schools. Why aren't we taught it? But yes, I 100% agree. It's they don't want powerful people.
no.
And every single one of us has the same amount of power as in. No one's special. No one's born any different. We're all born the same. A baby is born perfect unless they have gone through trauma in the womb. Again, this is where people say, oh, what has an innocent baby done? Well, you don't know what kind of trauma that baby has gone through in the womb, not even down to the mother, people around, whatever, absorbing the energies. It's not people have got to come away from this good, bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously there isn't good and bad, but what I mean is from that, how things are affecting them. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that maybe they need to heal themselves. And
it's also about healing ancestral trauma. Sometimes when babies come in, they come in specifically to heal the ancestral wounding in that line. So they might come in with something because of all the ancestral wounding, you know, from their ancestors. And they come in specifically to transmute that energy. There's so much to it.
Wow.
So much to it.
I love it. Oh, we could go on for hours. We could go on down some rabbit holes here, couldn't we?
Oh, definitely.
So do you think things have really changed in the last, you know, the madness that's been going on in the last 2 years? Have you seen, even with people coming to you or different things that needing to be healed, have you noticed a change in people in the last 2 years?
Massively. I've seen a change. so many people, like even my friends that were like, you know, very black and white. You know, I think there's such a benefit to what's going on at the moment, although we know, you know, the agenda's dark. But the thing is, it has caused an awakening. Not for everyone. I think people are too, it's cognitive dissonance. They don't want to look at what's really going on. And I don't blame them because it's painful to look at. But I have seen so many people like suddenly take a stop and pause and question their life, you know, what's important to them. You know, even the lockdowns. I know that, you know, I don't agree in lockdowns at all. But it did give people the opportunity. You know, there's duality in everything, isn't it? So, you know, on the positive side of a lockdown, it gave a lot of people the opportunity to go, hold on a minute, I'm spending all my time working for someone else. And now I'm not working and I'm enjoying my family. I'm enjoying, you know, being with the people I love. So it made people reevaluate their lives a lot, I think, which is
Yeah.
good. And it also obviously brought our attention to the fact that there are control systems in place that, hold on a minute, you're telling me I can't breathe fresh air? What? Like what? But obviously some people, and I think some people have gone even further. I think it's done both. I think it's awakened more people, but I also think it's kind of can't think of
Well,
the
it's a dangerous. Well, not I shouldn't use the word dangerous. It's a funny place to be in because we know as energy beings that we don't want to be. You know, yes, we want to go with our emotions. However, we don't want to stay there too long. So you have the tools, or you teach people how to, yes, hold that emotion, but now we're going to move through it and come out. We don't want to stay there and
yeah,
then wallow and then
yeah,
add another negative emotion and then get deeper. And the danger, I think, that I've seen is where people have been made aware. One thing, they might have gone down a little rabbit hole.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
they might have got a little bit lost and they've gone down
yeah,
another rabbit hole.
yeah.
And because there has been so much bad going on, it can swallow them up if they're not aware that
Absolutely.
they've got to bring themselves. It is, again, what's happened, we can't control. And
Mm,
there's one thing of being aware, and there's one thing of getting caught up in the whole feeling space of it. And that's
absolutely.
where we've got to protect ourselves. Is
Yeah,
that right?
totally. I did it myself years ago. Before all this, I went down rabbit holes. I think it was after 9/11. Um, and I was just like, oh, you know, the reality of what our world, what is actually going on in our world, it did sort of swallow me up. But the only thing that I had that got me through it was my faith in the fact that there is a greater purpose to all of this, and knowing that there is source energy and we're a part of it, and this life is temporary, it's an experience. But I really feel for people that have just woken up like that because of this, and they don't have that faith. Because if I didn't have my faith, I think I'd be on the floor rocking like in a ball. So what I actually did during the first, or I can't remember if it was the first or second lockdown, but I set up an Ascension support group, and it was for people specifically that had just woken up and were really kind of what I call in a fourth dimensional way of thinking. So they're aware of the corruption, but they're not really seeing, you know, to rise above that. So I set up a support group to kind of like bring people back to their hearts, because it's easy to go into anger and fear when you start, you know, same as the other side of the camp. It's easy for both sides to, oh, they're sheep, or they're dangerous, you know. And so what my goal was with the group was to kind of bring people back home and go, okay, everyone is only doing the best, you know, they can, like you say, with the belief system they had. And you know, everyone's been brainwashed, all of us. You know, I was asleep years ago. You know, I didn't know any of this stuff. I thought the government had our best interests at heart. You know, we were all asleep at one point to one level or another. So it's about having compassion for everyone on their journey, but also to try and give people the knowledge and the information. And it's not about trying to kind of teach them to, like, you know, if they're really atheist by nature and they don't want to believe in you know, the universal source or God, teaching them about that innate power within. That doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. Just teaching them that their minds are powerful, teaching them that their heart is powerful, just bringing them back to them is a really empowering thing to do. So,
Mm.
Yeah, so I relate to it, and that's what I do, because I've been down rabbit holes. We've all gone down rabbit holes, and it's shocking, and it's not nice. But you can't
You've
stay
got to
there.
bring yourself up, and it's
Can't stay there.
interesting. But it does seem like I don't know, when say 20 years ago, when I first sort of went into the self-development arena, I suppose, and it was all about mindset, mind.
Mm.
You know, your thoughts, and it's interesting how it has now switched to, well, actually the heart, and that's, so now I do feel like finally. So this is what I suppose this show was. You know, it was the meant, because I think people have got it now. The mainstream have accepted that the mental affects the physical. I think we're there. We weren't,
Yeah,
were we? We were still. You know, they weren't going to. You know, mental health. The whole thing was woo woo back then, wasn't it? Now they've accepted it, mental, physical, and now it's okay. The spiritual, the heart, being the heart centered, understanding that actually it's not even the thought, it's actually all coming from how we feel. It feels like this is the final connection that is going to be sort of released. Well, it's not the final. I'm sure there's going to be more and more levels as we go, but that sort of completion of the three is finally, I think, being opened up to the mainstream, and people are realizing it. Do you agree? Do you think that's how things are moving forwards? Do you hope so?
I hope so. I think for a lot of people, I think there are more people that are coming around to that. At the same time, I think there are more people that are going the other way. Unfortunately, the great split, isn't it? But
and again, I suppose it is down to, I suppose, what you talked about earlier about this. It is a natural instinct to want to avoid pain.
Absolutely.
Whereas now, you're teaching, you're showing people that actually, if you want this to be healed, no, we need to face it. I mean, I suppose feel the fear and do it anyway. Wasn't quite on the thing, but it's that starting process, that understanding that, if you resist it, persist it. We've got to at some point face it. I love that. I love what you're doing to get people to, own it, stay with it, because yes, instant reaction is run. This is scary. I don't like this, because it's an uncomfortable feeling. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But realizing we've got to go through it.
Yeah, it's the same as what's going on in the external. And this is the thing. I think what's going on at the moment is a collective dark night of the soul for humanity. And I think a lot of what we're seeing on the external is an absolute mirror to what's going on internally. So if we've got this controlling parent running our life, in our programming, and that we've learned from beliefs when we were a child, the biggest shadow is now coming up and saying, oh, look, we've got these governments dictating our every move. So it's like, hang on a minute, we're now seeing, because we are going through an ascension process, we are now seeing everything that's been hidden away, running in the background, not too obvious, same as what's going on in our minds. It's like, boom, here you go. There's all the control systems. They're mirroring your beliefs about yourself and your limitations. They're mirroring them. They're here for you to look at. So it's a huge opportunity to wake up and go, oh, I don't like what I'm seeing on the outside, but there's not a lot I can do about this. There's definitely something I can do about this. Where am I restricting myself? Where am I, not allowing myself to go for what I want because of programming that told me I wasn't worth it? Do you know what I'm saying? Where am I limiting myself in my freedom, and where have those beliefs come from? And I really think that if we do heal what's all of these limiting beliefs, and we look at them and challenge them, we will see a better world externally.
100% go without saying. I mean, what you're saying about the we know that the education system needs a shake up, and funny enough, I've just interviewed a couple that are doing their own, creating their own thing, and it is around, they're doing gong therapy and meditation with the kids, and we know that if if this generation were brought up, and I think more people are getting into maybe they're not calling it meditation, mate, it's the mindfulness. It's been called mindful. It's a start. It's a starting place, isn't it? So for these kids to actually grow up from that place, it could actually, the whole thing could be changed, couldn't it, in one generation? Done. Dealt with.
Yeah.
It's actually so simple. The solution seems so simple, but we, collective, overcomplicate the whole thing. But actually, it would be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Could solve the world problems with one generation from being brought up knowing how to heal themselves and how to deal with their emotions. But it's interesting how you say we've been brought up to suppress our emotion. I mean, I'm sure the British have probably got the worst reputation for like that, stiff upper lip, and the generation before, it would have been kids that should be seen and not heard, and so that whole suppression,
especially for men as well.
Yes,
especially for men, which is why you see higher suicide rates in men.
Well, I think this has brought it out, hasn't it? It's the men have been suffering more so than the women, maybe because us
for release.
No.
So I know a lot of really amazing people that do men's circles, which I think are amazing because it gives them an opportunity to drop their barriers and just be real and share their feelings, rather than go down the pub and like laugh at the football scores or like check out a bird in a skirt. They're actually getting real and honest with their feelings and being vulnerable and seeing that actually it's okay to be vulnerable because we're all going through it. And I think that's so healthy. And I think that will really, you're going to see a big increase in those kind of things going forward as we do move through the next years. I think because you're going to have to, because people are cracking under the pressure. So
absolutely. And that is the one thing that doesn't seem to be spoken of. Obviously, I know we've been here in the UK, we've been out of lockdown for a while. Obviously, other countries haven't. But yes, when we were in lockdown, definitely it is, for a while, it'd be sort of friends, maybe not people I directly know, but friends of friends who were just seeing it all the time, sort of that 50 age male, just really obviously struggling with this so much. I suppose us women, maybe it is we've got more accustomed to going to a gym in the day or doing yoga, and we've been more conditioned, I suppose.
We talk to each other, we share our feelings. Men don't really, and a lot of men do obviously, but most men don't really sit down and talk about how they're feeling with each other. Women, that's quite commonplace. So I think that's really important to like encourage men to open up more and let them know that actually there's massive strength in vulnerability, huge strength in vulnerability. You don't have to have it all together. No one does.
No. So we all wear masks. I mean, I'm one for that. People always think, I've got my smiley face on, and I come from the teaching fitness, so I've got to turn up, and whatever problems I have, I leave them at the door because I'm like, here, and that is again, that's a taught thing to forget. If something bad has happened, mate, do not bring that into the room. I'm and it has been a positive thing. However, I'm more than aware there's some negative effects from doing that has affected myself, because we can all wear a mask, and on the face of it, I'm always the happy, smiley person. There's nothing going wrong with me. I'm the strong one.
I relate to that. Because I can say this till the cows come home, but when it comes to myself, I know I'm getting better at it, but for a long time, like, I really, really held on to. I didn't want to ever let anyone see me in pain ever.
No,
because I found it embarrassing. Like, I actually found it embarrassing. Like, it's mental, and it's because of the conditioning. Like, don't cry, and it comes from there. So but
it's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of weakness. No, I'm strong.
To be, but it's not. It's the opposite is so true. And And actually, when you are vulnerable with people, when you do say, actually, no, I'm not feeling good, and I don't need any advice, I just want you to sit with me and just give me a cuddle or whatever it is, and just acknowledge it. Like, and just having that support, someone to hold that space for you, you'll move through it quicker because you're not doing it on your own.
And
There's a
that's
meme that I see recently, and I loved it. I shared it, and it was something about don't hide your pain, blah, blah, blah. It's unfair we laughed together, but you cried alone. And I thought, wow, that is so true. Like the amount of times I used to just shut the door and just completely break down. And I would never dream of like doing that in front of, maybe my best friend, but not majority of people, because again, I've been conditioned to see it as a sign of weakness. So
yes. So
yeah.
do you think things are changing? Do you think people are understanding this a little bit more? I mean, sometimes, like you say, sometimes that's all you want. You don't want even somebody to come along and fix it.
Mhm.
Some people, and I know I'm a bit for that, I'll admit.
I am as well.
Because then I want to come and fix things.
Yeah.
And actually, all they might need is just for you to be there and support it.
Present.
So it's interesting how the different natural ways of being that have come from obviously conditioning. And again, I suppose that's going back to the mother and daughter, wanting to stop the crying rather than allowing it. It would be the same with people coming to upset because you want to be able to fix it and make it all right. Whereas I suppose what I'm getting from our conversation today is what you're saying is it's okay to just be and allow that emotion. The quicker I suppose you do accept it, the quicker it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Because it's not permanent.
100%. Yeah.
It's going to come in, but the more we try to fix it or try to stop it, again, it's that resistance. So I suppose that's probably what I've personally taken from this conversation today is for everybody out there to it's you're okay.
It's okay to feel.
There you go. That sums it up nicely. It's okay to feel. And that can be, there you go, the whole scale of feelings. It's okay. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it's okay. Maybe don't stay down there too long if you're if you're down
You won't
there.
if you allow yourself to feel it, because it will naturally move through you. That's the point.
There you go.
Depression is when you're constantly pushing it away, and the thoughts, they just keep looping because you're not really allowing yourself to feel it.
To deal with it.
Yeah,
love
you've got to
this.
feel it, so.
Love that. So for you, Nicky, so what would you say your main thing is? If people out there that are listening that are struggling with anything, for one, how would they get in touch with you, and give us a range of the things you would offer people?
So I do either healing packages or coaching packages. And I basically, when I say that, they're kind of intertwined with the two. Some people might come to me just because they've got, an issue, like something that they need a soul retrieval with, whether it's depression or anxiety, and they're not even looking to, start coaching or manifesting anything like that. They just want to feel better. So for them, I would do what I call the soul retrieval process. What we talked about earlier, I would do that process with them. I can do that online, or I can do it in person.
So I absolutely love all of the things that you have to offer, Nicky, and I find it really fascinating. I know a lot of the coaches that I have on this show have ended up doing what they're doing because they've gone through a bit of a self-healing in the beginning. So I'm so happy for you that you've been able to change your whole life and you're currently living in more joy and abundance than you ever thought possible. And this is just really a reminder to anybody out there who's listening that that is available to absolutely everybody. But it is all about going deep, doing some deep inner work and addressing any buried traumas. And it doesn't matter whether it's whether you perceive that trauma to be big or small. It's how it affected you at the time and the feelings that you felt at the time, and then obviously that what comes from that are habitual patterns of being. So yeah, it was interesting that you did say quite early on about it is about stripping the layers back and healing each time, and with a continuance of gratitude, forgiveness, and not becoming attached to all of that. So for anybody out there, if they feel that they've been maybe repeating certain patterns and it might feel like the world's working against you, it isn't. It really isn't. All of this is available for all, but it's knowing how to do this work. So if you want to get in touch with Nicky, I'm going to put all her details below here, but you can actually find her on Facebook, facebook.com/Transformation Healing Therapies UK. Okay, that's how you'll find her. And, you know, it is all down to energy and feeling. Feeling is, like Nicky said, it's our guidance system. So, you know, as you raise your frequency, because at the end of the day, the feelings, the good feelings are all on a higher frequency. The sort of, you know, depression, anxiety, doubt, they are all lower frequencies. So at the end of the day, the universe will match you to an experience that triggers you, right, with the same feeling. So this is why it is so important to look back, find the issues that have been problematic over the years, and it could stem from one event, could stem from a few events, and actually go within, like Nicky said, and actually feel that. And I love the way Nicky describes this, and she will actually take you through it, because I would have thought it's quite a difficult thing to do yourself. So get in touch with Nicky. She can actually take you through the process of dealing with this and just holding on to that feeling and facing it and not being afraid of it. And so that you can live the life that you guys want. You can manifest what it is, whatever you want. So I love it. So Nicky, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think I'd like to have you on again. We could probably go down another rabbit hole, I reckon. So to the listeners, thank you for listening. This has definitely gone on a little bit more to the woo-woo side, although what Nicky's going to be doing with regards to the RTT, rapid transformation technique, which is sort of, I suppose, a side hustle to hypnotism, Marissa Peer, that does have amazing results too. Maybe not quite so woo-woo, more within the mental perspective. But I know Nicky is going to be doing that soon as well. So please get in touch with her. For the rest of you, thank you for listening. And I will be back next week with a Coffee with Karen. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.